Asian skills in online classes. Okay, so let me have a few words about Miss Hồng Phúc. About our presenter, Miss Hồng Phúc. She graduated from Vietnam National University of Hanoi, majoring in English language education. She has been teaching English for both major and non-major students at Banking Academy of Vietnam since 2012. She is really much interested in creating innovations in classroom practices and employing technology in teaching and learning. Has long been her primary field of interest. Please welcome Miss Hồng Phúc. Okay, so now I'm gonna stop sharing to let you share the screen. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Đức, for supporting me. And I'm showing my slide. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
You hear me clearly? All right, thank you. So good morning again, and my name is Phúc from Banking Academy of Vietnam. And it has been 4 years since I last attended the VietCESO convention. And then today it's my great honor again to make a live presentation to all of you guys. And it's gonna be a report on my research that I did recently. It is on film dubbing as an engaging ICT-based alternative to develop natural English pronunciation skills in online classes. So let's have a quick look at my presentation, the main content of my presentation. So firstly, I would like to make some introduction about the ICT and film dubbing first. And then I would like to tell you about my research aim and research design. The main part of my presentation is about the findings of the research and discussion on them. And there will be some conclusion at the end of my presentation. Firstly, I would like to talk about the integration of ICT in education. So we all know that ICT was actually introduced in early 1990s as a force to change many aspects of human endeavors, like economics, engineering, healthcare, and of course, education. And it has been nearly 3 decades of applying ICT in education, especially in EFL or in ESL. And when it comes to the term ICT, it covers a whole range of applications, techniques, and systems in the field of education. So the integration of ICTs had really opened up new horizons by offering potential powerful tools for dynamic, proactive, effective teaching and learning, by increasing learner motivation and engagement, by facilitating the basic skill acquisition and enhancing teacher training. So it's kind of a requirement for this area of education to introduce videotapes, television, and other kind of multimedia computer software to provide challenging and authentic content to our learners. And the second thing that I would like to talk now is about film dubbing in developing English oral skills. So we all know that film dubbing is an acting as voice-over actor, or to fill in the sound of the video where the original soundtrack of the video is turned off. And actually it has long known as a pedagogical technique, especially for developing English oral skills. So in recent literature, we have, it has shown that there are kind of some different steps in film dubbing process, which involve watching animation, listening, subtitle reading, and repetition before the final words has been completed. And the recent literature, there has been a consensus among the recent literature about the effectiveness of film dubbing. It is widely agreed that it is an amusing technique, an effective means of forming phonological and intercultural competence. It can have enhanced accuracy and fluency in speaking and pronunciation as well. And for those reasons, I and other teachers teaching pronunciation at my school were really much interested in applying film dubbing in developing student pronunciation skill. So let's talk about my research. The research was carried out to investigate student perceived influences of film dubbing over their learning engagement and the development of natural English pronunciation skill. And I also wanted to look at challenges of my student in using film dubbing to develop the pronunciation skill. So the research design is like that. Film dubbing was all applied to all English major freshmen of K23 at Banking Academy of Vietnam in the last academic year. And it was applied for the online class in the beginning of the semester and actually to the end of the semester because the COVID-19 still prolonged. And all the films, the sources of films and dubbing tools and apps, dubbing procedures, everything was introduced to all students in advance. The task was assigned on bi-weekly basis, and students were expected to make dubbed video of 3 to 4 minutes, and then they were submitted to teacher via online platforms. And we use different online platforms. It could be Google Classroom, Edmodo, Facebook group, or Flipgrid. Yeah, it was different from one class to another. And then the student would get feedback from teacher, and for every 2 weeks we chose like 4 or 5 videos to show in the class so that student will get peers feedback from their classmates. And film dubbing was also used as the alternative for midterm tests too. So the research methodology, the participation of this research was 168 students, all the students from 4 existing classes at the last semester. And they are at a pre-intermediate level in English proficiency. So in order to collect the data for my research, I used the online survey using Google Form. And among 168 students, I got 108 to respond to my survey. And for the semi-structured phone interview, I got 8 students. And then for the content of the survey and the interview, I follow the main, like I try to get student perception in terms of their preferences, whether they like film dubbing or not, and the way they perceive the effectiveness of film dubbing on learning motivation and on the development of pronunciation skills as well. About the challenges in film dubbing, I want to look at their difficulties in learning different pronunciation aspects, in choosing films to dub, in technical issues and times and space as well. And here comes the results. Firstly, I want to talk about my student preferences of using film dubbing, whether they like it or not. And the findings proved to be very positive, with nearly 80% of the students say that they like or they really like it. Only a minority say that they dislike or really dislike. And in my interviews, most of the students use like positive word to talk about film dubbing, like amusing, interesting, motivating, or beneficial. And I was really glad about that. About the ways my students perceive the effectiveness of film dubbing on their learning motivation. So the finding was quite similar, with more than 80% saying that quite effective or very effective. And the reason that I can explore from my interview student was that they thought film dubbing was new and fun things to practice. And there were available demonstration of sound pronunciation from there in the video for my student to learn. They don't have to look at the dictionary or something else. Everything was right there. And also they thought that film dubbing is also the very personalized way So they feel free and they feel less stressed in their learning task. And the next thing is about my student perception on the effectiveness of film dubbing on developing pronunciation skill in general, just in general, whether it is effective for their learning pronunciation skill or not. And then it's still a positive result, with a great majority of the students say that it's effective. And I actually did have an inside look at the different aspect of pronunciation skill that my student found film dubbing really helped. And then I found that most of the students put film dubbing had good impacts on developing all aspect of pronunciation skills, especially intonation, with 96 out of 108 students advocated for that, and linking sounds, accents, and stress, including word stress and sentence stress. So I can say that there was very positive attitudes among my students in the way they perceive the effectiveness of using film dubbing to motivate their learning and to develop pronunciation skill. The second point that I want to present here is about the challenges that my students encounter in using film dubbing. So firstly, I want to look at the challenges in developing different aspects of pronunciation skills. So the findings shows that intonation was actually the biggest challenge, with 63% of the students reporting on that, followed by accent, 57%, word and sentence stress, 49%. So it is like a coincidence that in the previous slide, we have the finding that intonation was the aspect that students find they are most developed with that. But here, intonation was also the biggest challenge. So it is kind of coincident. And words and stress, sentence stress and accent was also of the case, similar cases. There is one interesting finding to me. That is, accent is not the most challenging aspect. And some of my interview students even proved that they didn't really focus on that. It's really interesting to me, and I think this finding is also positive to some extent. And I put the question why here until the later part of my presentation, and then you can think about this question. Okay, until then. The second challenge related to my student selection film for dubbing tasks. And then, actually, nearly 60% of them found it challenging. And they found it challenging in choosing films with appropriate accents, speed of lines, and difficulty levels of pronunciation. About technological challenges, this thing is one of the main focus when I think about the challenges of my student. And actually, technological challenges were acknowledged by most students. And the biggest one is the lack, and also another challenge lies in the lack of support of instructor and peers. And some of my interview students even wished for more help about how to use the apps and how to deal with unexpected technical problems. So I was, a little bit surprised, okay? Not a nice surprise, but I think that it is the flaw of my research. And to make it in a positive way, I think that is a room for further improvement after this innovation. I think that I will take this into more consideration when I do another innovation in other classes of mine. However, the lucky thing is that most students who face the challenge didn't really feel annoyed. And I asked my student, and then they say that they perceive those challenge as unavoidable, because we all know that technology is really helpful, but we must be very well prepared for any problems. And then it's also a trade-off for the use of technological advantages. The next thing about the time challenge, and yeah, again, nearly 85% of the students found that this activity time-consuming, especially for the practicing of pronunciation of words in the lines, practicing intonation, or the film dubbing activity. And most interview students said that they often spend 3 to 5 hours for dubbing process and half of which for voicing over act only. So yeah, again, even though it is time consuming, but most of my students thought that it was not annoying at all. And nearly 8% of them thought like this. So it's quite similar to student positive attitude toward technological challenges. So it's great when they perceive time consumption as a trade-off for benefits of film dubbing on learning. And I have been wishing that my students spend a lot of time for practicing. So I think that is right to my expectation. Another thing, yeah, it's just a minor thing, but I think that we still need to put it into our concern, that is the space challenges. Yes, and a big number of students had difficulty in finding a proper place to do film dubbing. So we know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, some or even all members of the family have to stay at home to work and to study from home together, and then they may have to share room together. So in order to find a good place, a quieter place, a private place, a comfortable place to dub the film, so it is also a matter of concern. So I will go to the conclusion with a summary of the findings. About the first thing I want to investigate, that is my student preferences and the effectiveness of using film dubbing. So the finding has shown that film dubbing is really an engaging method to increase student motivation in learning English pronunciation skill. And it is also an effective method to develop English pronunciation skill, especially supra-segmental aspect like intonation, linking sounds, accent, or word stress or sentence stress. And the most important thing is that it is very much preferred by my student, by great majority of my student. About the challenges, so there are challenges of different kinds, that technological problem, time consumption, and space issues were encountered by most students, but they simply took it as a trade-off for benefits of film dubbing. So it's still positive. And the thing is that even though challenges were reported in all research aspects, the positive meaning of applying film dubbing was well acknowledged by, and it really outweighed the challenges.
Excuse me, you have 5 more minutes for your presentation. Okay.
Okay, thank you. And here comes the research implication. Firstly, I want to talk about what my student focused to develop in the pronunciation course. So it has been reviewed that intonation, accent, and stress were spent most of the time on, and they were the biggest challenges, but also the most developed aspect. So I know that it is supra-segmental aspect of English pronunciation was the main focus of my student, not the segmental. And here I got that the biggest challenge is also the most developed aspect. And it means that challenges really turn into learning opportunity. So I can say that the primary purposes of using film dubbing to develop natural English pronunciation skills has been well achieved in my innovation. And the other thing that I want to put focus on the practical approach in teaching and learning natural English pronunciation skill. Get back to the question previously about accent. It's not the biggest challenge to the student. And one of my students said that in the interview, he said that English native speaker accents are natural, but I think acquiring natural English pronunciation skill doesn't necessarily mean 100% imitating native-like accent. So the matter of concern is whether or not students need to like pay a lot of attention, pay a lot of effort to acquire native-like accent. The question is, the answer is not. And here in recent literature, there is a common framework about teaching and learning pronunciation skill. And so you see that native-like accent is no longer included as a principal feature of English pronunciation. And it brings me to the belief that the primary goal of teaching and learning natural English pronunciation should be, the question is, should be perfect pronunciation or intelligible pronunciation. So actually the question has been shown here on the slide already. So we need to think about intelligible pronunciation, not the perfect pronunciation, meaning that it's not necessarily like the natives, but the learner of speaker need to have like accurate and clear pronunciation, well enough to be understood, not necessarily to be 100% like a native speaker. And actually that is a practical approach to develop natural English pronunciation to serve international communication purposes. So I really wish that all of us, the teachers of pronunciation, as well as learner of pronunciation, really know about that. And we have like appropriate focus in developing English pronunciation skill. Another thing is that the future use of film dubbing. So despite challenges in all concerned aspects, students still strongly advocated for the film dubbing. It means that we can widely apply film dubbing in teaching and learning. In my context, it can be maintained as a primary activity for the next pronunciation courses. And it can also be applied for other subjects like speaking or translation. And it also means that not only film dubbing, but other kind of technological innovations should be well embraced in our teaching and learning context. And however, we also need to take a careful consideration into how to minimize challenges in film dubbing. I think about careful guidance about the dubbing process. I think about clear instruction on technical issues and technological issues. And also available support from instructor and peers are very, very much important. That's what I didn't do very well in my innovation. And frequent feedback from instructors and peers. And the last thing, last but not least, it is appropriate deadlines. Our students showed their difficulties in times and space arrangement. So it means that we need to have appropriate deadlines, not too tight, so that they can prepare everything good enough to make their learning not stressful. About the careful guidance about the dubbing process, here I have one suggestion on the dubbing process, which involves 6 steps: choosing video and watching the video and listen to the lines, learning the lines, focusing on all target pronunciation aspects. And I know that, I believe that the real learning process.
I'm so sorry to stop you, but it's time for the Q&A section. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your sharing. So can you please stop sharing so that I can share with you some of the questions from the participants?
Okay, thank you for your attention. Yeah, actually that is also my last line, so we don't miss anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And some of the participants, they really want to see your slide share or the link share to your slides. Okay, so come up with the very first question. I think they share the same. They share the same interest. So, is it necessary for teachers to prepare relevant films which are talking about the same language that you are teaching in your curriculum, or you can share some resources where teacher can choose the film and some device or applications needed to dub the film. So please.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, in my practice, in the first beginning, I also share with my students some films as it's just for recommendation. Yeah. However, I think that it is really helpful for them in the first beginning. But in some weeks later, they know what they should do. They know what they are expected to do, and they know how to choose the theme which are like appropriate for the learning context, for also appropriate, suitable for their learning preferences. So I think it can depends, right? But firstly, we need to like introduce some sources of film so that the student can take consideration. Yeah, and actually there is no restriction on the content of films and genre of films. Yeah, they can have free choice. Yeah, so that the student can feel free and to feel less stressful on the learning task.
Okay, so let's come up with the second question. What tools did you use to evaluate student stress, linking sounds, and other aspects of pronunciation? Also, sorry.
Okay.
We have another questions that have the same interest. So what tools did you use to measure students' pronunciation in terms of supra segmental features of speech? Yeah, can you please?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So you are asking about the tool to measure the student development, right? Actually, now I haven't got any specific tool to measure. Or you mean any like technological tools? I just listen carefully and then I like assess their intonation, their stress, just like we have the face-to-face interview, just like we have face and direct talk with the student. And then we teacher, we know whether our student have made progress in their showing stress or intonation or not. We really know, we really know they showing like correct intonation or correct stress in their sentences or not. However, I really like this question because later on I will think about like a specific tone to have us to have better like assessment.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Okay. Yes, and another question that about the test. So do you have any pre-test or post-test to measure students' pronunciation? And can the participants access to the
yes.
test?
Yeah, thank you. So actually I apply this as a like a learning activity. And then it's just not the pre-test or post-test research. So actually I didn't have any pre-test. But it is the like how to say, this is a formative assessment. I did my student did the film dubbing task every 2 weeks, and then I just want to see the improvement after weeks by weeks. And I think that it is a kind of formative assessment, not the summit. Yeah, actually in the midterm test too, we also have film dubbing as an alternative for the previous form of the test. But yeah, I didn't have any pre-test. I didn't have such kind of thing to make comparison, but I know that after the learning process, my student did make great progress.
I could see some other questions later on, but we don't have more time. So I would come back. So can you please share your email address on the meeting chat so that the participants can send you an email.
Right.
Thank you.
So I'm putting my email address on the chat box, and then you can get me right there. Yeah, actually, I also have something about pronunciation teaching to share with you, and I'm willing to do that. So if you are of the same interest, so you can contact me. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Congratulations. So can all participants and presenters, can you share, can you turn on your camera and send us a heart so that we can take a picture of our today's section?